A billionaire pretended to sleep just to catch a thief. What a child did instead changed everything. Elias Harrow was not asleep. His eyes were closed, his breathing slow. His shoulders sunk deep into the leather chair like an old coat that no longer fit. To anyone watching, he looked harmless. A tired man drifting into an afternoon nap with the fire crackling and the rain tracing quiet lines down a glass. But behind his eyelids, Elias was awake, sharp, counting, listening. Elias had learned something in 78 years. People behave differently when they think no one is looking. He used to believe in trust. He used to believe in character. Then he became wealthy. And little by little, trust got replaced with patterns. A partner who asked for a temporary loan and vanished. A niece who hugged him and called him uncle but only showed up around tax season. A friend who suddenly wanted to pitch him the next big thing the minute his name appeared on a business magazine. Even the people who worked for him. Some were loyal, yes, but others saw a mansion and assumed the silverware was free. And his children. Elias didn't like thinking about that part. They hadn't always been distant. They hadn't always been transactional. But now, when they visited, they asked questions that sounded like love until you listened closely. How are you feeling? Meant, do we need to prepare? Do you need anything? Meant, have you changed the will? And Elias, who had spent a lifetime controlling outcomes, started doing what he knew best. He started testing people. Outside the study, the rain intensified. It hit the windows in thick, impatient bursts, like the weather itself was trying to get in. Inside, the fire made the room glow in warm oranges and soft shadows. Elias loved this room, not because it was expensive, but because it was quiet. Books, history, silence that didn't ask him anything. On a side table beside his chair, Elias placed a simple envelope. Not dramatic, not stuffed like a movie prop. Just enough cash to matter. $2,000. To someone like Elias, it was nothing. To someone struggling, it could be rent, groceries, school supplies, the kind of money that changes how you breathe. He placed the envelope so a corner of the bills was visible. Then he settled back in his chair, closed his eyes, and waited. The doorknob turned. Footsteps entered, slow, cautious. Elias recognized the pattern. Soft shoes, measured pace. Marisol, his newest housekeeper. He'd approved her after a thorough background check. No criminal record, widowed, one child, lives in a small apartment across town, works 2 jobs when she can find them. The kind of life that never makes headlines. Elias heard her pause by the doorway. Then, another sound. A second set of footsteps. Tiny, careful, trying very hard not to exist. Elias frowned internally. He hadn't approved visitors, and he definitely hadn't approved a child. But he stayed still. Marisol whispered, voice tight with panic. Amir, stay behind that chair. Do not touch anything. Do not speak. If he wakes up and sees you here, I lose this job, and then we don't have rent. A small voice answered. Okay, Mama. It wasn't a bratty voice. It was careful, trained. The voice of a child who had learned rules too early. Marisol moved deeper into the room. I have to clean the dining room fast. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Please. The door clicked shut. And now the study held only 2 people. A billionaire pretending to sleep, and a little boy trying not to breathe too loudly. Silence stretched out. Elias listened for what always came next. Curiosity, rustling, a child exploring the expensive room. But nothing happened. 2 minutes. 3. Elias's neck began to ache, but he didn't move. Then, soft fabric rustled. The boy stood up. Elias felt his muscles tighten. Here we go, he thought. Small footsteps approached his chair, slow, hesitant. They stopped beside the side table. Elias waited for the grab, for the envelope to disappear, for the quiet confirmation that he was right about people. But the grab didn't come. Instead, Elias felt a tiny hand touch his wrist. Not searching, not stealing, just checking. Then the boy whispered, barely audible over the rain. Sir, your hands are shaking. Elias's chest tightened. He wasn't shaking. He was cold. And somehow the boy noticed what no one else did. A zipper sound, fabric shifting. The boy took off his hoodie, and then Elias felt it. Warmth settling over his hands, light like a blanket. A child's hoodie, thin and slightly damp from the storm. The boy whispered again. My grandma says old people get colder faster. A pause. And when someone's cold, you cover them. Another pause. Doesn't matter if they're rich. Elias felt something hot and unfamiliar behind his eyes. He hated that sensation, because it wasn't anger, it was shame. The envelope still sat untouched. Elias expected the boy to take it now, after the nice act, like a trick. But instead, the boy nudged the envelope away from the edge of the table, carefully, gently, like he was worried it might fall, get lost, cause trouble. Then the boy noticed something else near the chair, a small wooden box with a loose lid. Inside that box was a watch, old, rare, valuable. It belonged to Elias's father. Elias never let anyone touch it. The boy picked up the lid, placed it back, and pushed the box into a safer position. Then he whispered, "Safe." And he returned to his corner, sat down, and hugged his knees. Now he was shivering, because he'd given away his only warm lair. Elias lay there with his eyes closed, stunned. He had set a trap for greed, and caught kindness. But his mind didn't accept it easily. He had spent years convinced that kindness was either a performance or a prepayment for something later. So he waited, because maybe this was the first move of a longer con. The study door burst open. Marisol rushed in breathless, face pale. Her eyes snapped to the corner, Amir without his hoodie, then to Elias's hands, covered, then to the envelope on the table. Marisol's expression cracked into pure terror. She grabbed Amir's arm and yanked him up. "What did you do? What did you touch? Did you touch that envelope?" Amir's eyes widened. "No, Mama, he was cold, and the envelope was going to fall." Marisol shook, whispering apologies to the sleeping billionaire, as if apologizing could undo reality. "I'm sorry. Please, please don't wake up." And Elias felt it. Not fear of the storm, fear of him. Fear of what money does to power. Fear that kindness could be misinterpreted as theft. Elias realized in that moment that he had become a man people were terrified to exist around. Not because he yelled, because he could ruin their life with one sentence. Elias groaned, slowly, theatrically. He opened his eyes. Marisol froze. Amir shrank behind her. Elias put on his grumpy billionaire face, the one that made people step back. "What is this?" he growled. "Why is there a child in my study?" Marisol's voice broke. "I'm sorry, sir. The school closed because of the storm. I couldn't afford a sitter. We're leaving right now. Please don't fire me." Elias stared at them. Then he reached for the envelope. Marisol squeezed her eyes shut, expecting accusation. Elias tapped it against his palm. "Boy," he sharply said. Amir looked up. "Come here." Marisol tried to hold him back. Elias's voice turned harder. "Come here." Amir stepped forward slowly and stopped by Elias's knees. Elias leaned close. "Did you put your hoodie on me?" Amir swallowed. "Yes, sir." Elias narrowed his eyes. "Why?" Amir answered simply. "Because you looked cold." Elias's chest tightened. "And the envelope?" Elias asked. "Did you take it?" Amir shook his head quickly. "No, sir. It was going to fall, so I moved it." Elias sat back. He looked at Marisol, and he did something she didn't expect. He pointed to the couch. "Sit." Marisol blinked. "Sir?" "I said sit," Elias repeated, then softened just slightly. "Please." She sat on the edge of the couch, pulling Amir onto her lap like she was shielding him from the world. Elias folded the hoodie carefully and held it in his hands. "I wasn't asleep." Marisol's eyes widened. You were testing us?"
"Yes." Marisol's face changed. Not anger. She couldn't afford anger. Just hurt. "Like we're animals," she whispered. Elias flinched. Because she was right. He held out the envelope. "Take it." Marisol recoiled. "No." Elias frowned. "I'm not offering charity," he said. "I'm offering payment." "For what?" Elias looked at Amir. "For reminding me I'm human." Marisol hesitated. Her eyes flicked to Amir's worn shoes. Elias lowered his voice. buy him a warm coat and shoes and groceries. Marisol's hands trembled as she accepted the envelope, not greedily, but like she was afraid the money might burn her. Elias watched her. And then he made a decision. "Stay tonight," he said. "The storm is bad." Marisol looked up sharply. "We can't." "You can," Elias said. "Guest room, dry clothes, soup." Marisol didn't trust it. Elias saw that too. And it stung. Not a test, a decision. Marisol swallowed. Slowly, she nodded. That night, the mansion didn't feel like a fortress. It felt like a house. Elias watched from the hallway as Amir ate soup at the kitchen table, blowing on each spoonful like it was precious. Marisol sat across from him, shoulders tight, waiting for the kindness to turn into a demand. Elias realized something. He had spent so long expecting people to take from him. He never considered how exhausting it is to live expecting your safety can be revoked at any moment. In the weeks that followed, Amir came after school. At first, he stayed quiet, sitting on the rug in the study with homework. Elias pretended to read. But sometimes, his eyes drifted. Because Amir didn't behave like a child in a mansion. He behaved like a guest trying not to get kicked out of the world. One afternoon, Elias noticed Amir staring at the wooden box under the table. "The watch?" Elias asked. "Yes." "It's old, but it looks important." Elias exhaled. "It belonged to my father," he said. "Was he nice?" Elias froze. No one asked him that. Not his lawyers? Not his children? Amir asked because he was curious about the person, not the money. Elias looked down at his hands. Elias paused. He was complicated. Amir nodded like he understood. "People can be complicated and still be good," Amir said. Elias stared at him. Where did a child learn to say that? Over time, Elias began to notice the cracks in his own story. He told himself he tested people because he wanted truth. But what he really wanted was control. Because if you control the test, you control the outcome. And if you control the outcome, you never have to be hurt by someone's choice. He had built his life like that. Then one day, Marisol showed up with red eyes. Elias noticed immediately. "What happened?" he asked. Marisol tried to smile. "Nothing, sir." Elias didn't let it go. After a long silence, Marisol admitted the landlord was raising rent again. Elias listened. Then he did something that surprised even him. He offered her a better position, stable hours, higher pay, and training. Marisol stiffened.
"Why?" she asked, suspicious. Elias answered honestly. "Because your son covered my hands when he didn't have to." Marisol's eyes watered. "Sir, that's not how life works." Elias nodded slowly. "I know," he said. "That's why I'm changing how I work." Now here's where the story shifts. Because kindness doesn't always come without consequences. Elias's old world, the world of sharp suits and sharper smiles, noticed changes. He started funding local programs quietly.
He stopped attending certain elite dinners. He restructured parts of his holdings to invest in people, not prestige. And his children noticed too. One weekend, Elias's son, Grant, arrived unannounced. Grant walked into the mansion like he owned it, because in his mind he did. He saw Marisol in the hallway and barely acknowledged her. Then he saw Amir, a child in the study. Grant's face tightened. "Who is that?" he asked Elias. Elias's voice was calm. "Amir." Grant looked disgusted, like the name itself was inconvenient. "Why is he here?" Grant asked. Elias answered simply, "Because I invited him." Grant laughed once, sharp and humorless. "You're turning this place into a daycare now?" he said. Elias felt something old rise in him, anger. Not because Grant was rude, because Grant was revealing how Elias's children saw other people, as background, as furniture. Grant sat down and started talking about business. Not Elias's health, not his loneliness, not his life, just business. He mentioned the will, casually, like a man pointing at a menu. Elias listened, stone-faced. Then Elias did something Grant wasn't ready for. He asked a question. "Grant," Elias said, "do you know what color my father's eyes were?" Grant blinked. "What?" "Do you know his favorite song? Do you know the first job I ever had?" Grant's jaw tightened. "Dad, what is this?" Elias leaned back. "This is me realizing you don't know me," he said quietly. Grant scoffed. "I know you built everything we have." Elias nodded. "And that," he said, "is all you came to learn." After Grant left, Elias sat alone in the study for a long time. Amir quietly walked over and placed a cup of water on the side table, the way he'd seen Marisol do. He didn't ask questions. He just helped. And Elias felt something painful. He had been richer than everyone around him, and still starving. Months passed. Elias's health declined slowly. Not dramatically, just enough that the cane became necessary. Then the stairs became slow. Then the nights became longer. Amir grew older. Still kind, but also more aware. One day, Amir asked, "Sir, why do people look scared around you?" Elias didn't answer first. Then he told the truth. "Because I taught them to." Amir's eyes were serious.
My mama was scared of you, Amir said, but you're not scary now. Elias sighed. I was always the same person, he said. I just didn't act like it. Now we reach the mid-story twist, because Elias's tests weren't done. But this time, he wasn't testing for greed. He was testing for something else. He wanted to know if kindness could survive pressure. One afternoon, Elias called Marisol into the study. He placed a contract on the table. Marisol's face tightened. "What is this, sir?" Elias's voice was neutral. "Read it," he said. Marisol read. Her hands began to shake. It was a non-disclosure agreement and a relocation offer. It promised housing, tuition assistance, long-term stability. But it required one thing. Marisol would have to move away, far, from her community, from her support, and it would mean Amir couldn't see his friends. Marisol looked up. "Why are you doing this?" Elias answered quietly. "Because my children are watching," he said. "And the world I built will swallow you if I leave you standing in the open." Marisol stared at him. "So this is another test," she said bitterly. Elias shook his head. "No," he said. "This is protection." Marisol's eyes filled. For the first time, she wasn't afraid he would take her job. She was afraid kindness would demand her life in return. Marisol didn't sign right away. She asked for time. That night, Amir sat in the study and looked at the fire. "Sir," he said quietly, "are you going to die soon?" Elias flinched. Children didn't soften truth. Elias hesitated, then nodded. Amir stared at the flames. "I don't want you to die angry," Amir said. Elias swallowed hard. "I'm trying not to," he whispered. A week later, Marisol signed. Not because she wanted to leave, because she understood Elias's fear.
When he was gone, his children would treat her like a stain on the carpet, and the world would go back to its old rules. Years pass quickly in stories, but in real life, they pass in small moments. Amir doing math at Elias's desk, Marisol learning how to run budgets, Elias learning how to say thank you without turning it into a transaction. And somewhere in there, Elias changed. Now, the final act. Elias died quietly one winter morning in his chair by the fire. The study was still. The mansion felt like it held its breath. The lawyer gathered everyone. Elias's children arrived dressed in expensive grief. They looked at the furniture like it was already sold. They barely looked at Marisol, and they didn't look at Amir. The lawyer read the first part. Trust funds for the children. Millions each. They relaxed, satisfied. Then they stood up to leave, but the lawyer raised a hand. There is more. Elias's son snapped, "More what?" The lawyer opened a sealed letter. "It is Mr. Harrow's instruction that I read this aloud." The room went quiet. The lawyer read, "To my children, you inherited my name. You never tried to inherit my heart." The daughter scoffed. The lawyer continued, "You visited when you wanted a piece of me, so I am giving you what you always came for, money." Then the lawyer's voice slowed. "And to the remainder of my estate, my controlling shares, private holdings, and foundation."
The children leaned forward. "I leave it to the one person who treated me like I was cold, not rich." The room exploded. "Who? This is a joke. That's ours." The lawyer looked up. "Amir Harrow," he said. Marisol's breath caught. Amir didn't move. He just stared at the empty chair. The children shouted. They accused. They threatened. The lawyer waited, then raised his voice. Mr. Harrow left a second letter explaining his decision. The lawyer read, "Years ago, I believed everyone had a price, so I tried to prove it. On a stormy day, I left money out as bait. A child entered my study and did not touch it. He covered my hands with his own hoodie. He moved the envelope so it wouldn't fall. He made my father's watch safe. And in a world where everyone wanted something from me, he wanted nothing." The lawyer paused. "You think I am giving him wealth. I am paying a debt. He gave me a decade of laughter, noise, humanity. He and his mother taught me that trust is not weakness, it is courage." The lawyer finished. Then he placed a velvet box on the table in front of Amir. Amir opened it. Inside was Elias's father's watch, restored, polished, and engraved inside in small letters, "Safe." Amir's eyes filled, not with greed, with grief, because Amir didn't care about billions. He cared about the old man who once tried to trap him and ended up becoming his family. Elias's children stormed out. They threatened lawsuits, but the lawyer's face didn't change. The will was airtight. Elias had planned it like a businessman, and like a man trying to leave the world cleaner than he found it. Later, after the shouting faded, Amir walked to the side table. He placed the watch there, beside the folded hoodie Elias had kept. Amir whispered, voice small again, "Safe." Not the money, the lesson. Amir grew up and became a different kind of wealthy man. He didn't hoard. He repaired. He funded schools, trade programs, housing support. And when people asked him how he became successful, Amir would pause, then say, "I didn't inherit money. I inherited a responsibility, because someone taught me the richest thing you can give a person is not cash. It's trust." Money made him powerful, but a child made him human.